Anytime a big money-making drug is criticized, you can bet that big pharma will fight back.
Absolutely.
And recently we reported on a couple of studies that were published in the British Medical Journal on the severity and the frequency of adverse effects from taking statin drugs and the high risk of taking them routinely if a person was at low risk for cardiovascular disease. Then there was this big hullabaloo claiming that the information was incorrect. So, what action did the British Medical Journal take and what did they find?
Well, they were in a tough spot because they had published something that maybe didn't have as much credibility as normally would be there, but still was correct. And so they went ahead and got an independent review board to assess whether or not this article should be retracted, as some people were requesting that be done.
I think that's great that the journal would do that.
They were really kind of pressured into it because what had happened is that there was a previous study that was done, published in the same journal in October of 2013, that claimed that there was 18 to 20% of people had adverse drug effects. And they didn't, and the people who had published the study previously were upset by that. And so they went ahead and sent a letter to the British Medical Journal and said, we think you should retract the article, and it makes me wonder who was behind this.
Well, duh.
Yeah, probably.
But not only that, there were several articles saying that it was incorrect. I mean, just flat out incorrect.
Yeah.
So I think that there were a lot of people that probably read that and assumed that those statistics were incorrect, that may not have read the future articles that we had to retract that and say that the first article was correct in the first place.
Yeah, so let's get real about this. Where do you think we got the information to get the 18 to 20%? A figure. A lot of that came from where? The drug manufacturer itself. It has to publish things through the FDA in order to be able to bring a drug to market.
So you know it's bigger than that.
So yeah, they're not going to exaggerate those effects. They're going to minimize them. In fact, when they publish journal articles, they rarely even include side effects there. They're just looking at the good things that happen. And what happens is we've got a public now that's getting pretty savvy. They know that these drugs that are being made by Big Pharma very often have a lot more side effects than meets the eye. And they're starting to get suspicious about it.
But some people don't. And some people just take the drugs and they don't even realize that they're taking a statin. Now, that's why I think it's always important to just name a few of what the statin drugs are so people will know if this applies to them. Things like Lipitor and Crestor and Mevacor and Pravachol.
Lescol, and there's some others as well. But I think what happened also is that the public is very vulnerable to advertising. Look what happened back when GMOs were on the ballot to be approved or disapproved in the state of California about a year ago. The advertising was so effective, they got people to vote against knowing what's in their food. They didn't care if it was GMO or not.
They didn't want it labeled.
So it's hard to, the public is that vulnerable, but at least we're starting to wake up.
But anyway, besides the 18 to 20%, there are a lot more than 18 to 20%. And there were a lot of side effects that weren't even included.
Sure.
Like extreme fatigue and the muscle pain and how it can cause problems with even your heart muscle.
Sure.
And CoQ10.
So it depends when you're talking about the percentage of people who are affected by drug side effects, what the criteria are. And I can tell you that probably everybody who takes any drug has got some kind of metabolic challenge that they're facing because of that drug, either because it's interfering with some process in the body or it's causing a problem with detoxification.
And then what about side effects that don't cause symptoms?
Exactly. That's even more of a problem. That's a real big issue, Vicki. I'm glad you brought that up, because when we have a side effect that we can measure, that's one thing. But what happens when we have a dysfunction that's just short of causing a symptom? And maybe there are 2 or 10 or 15 or 100 or 1,000 different areas where this is occurring. We're still going to be at a reduced level of wellness, and that's something to consider.
And just recently online on Facebook, I have a Facebook friend that was taking a statin, and she was complaining about all the symptoms that she'd had and everything and how long it took to realize that it was from the statin. It wasn't from all these other things that the doctor was suspecting, and so as a result she ended up on all these other medications.
Sure, to try and prevent the side effects of the drug.
Yeah.
And who reports side effects to the CDC? It's not doctors. Doctors are pretty much looking for the effects of the drug that they want. And they don't want to hear about the side effects, really, because it interferes with what they're doing.
So how many people really do report the side effects to the CDC? That's another question.
Not a lot of people do. However, about 90% of what is reported doesn't come from doctors, it comes from patients. So when we're looking at the statins and we see a big issue like this that is coming out because of whoever is behind it not wanting to reveal what's happening, you have to really take a hard look at the whole system of medicine and how it relies so much on drugs, which almost all have side effects that we have to be concerned about. And it's one of the reasons why we're seeing a few 100,000 deaths every year from pharmaceutical drugs in this country. So when it comes to the statins, I think we should be very cautious about using them, particularly when we're looking at people who have only minor symptoms. You look at people like women who have no side effects, who have no big problems with arteriosclerosis, who are in relatively good health and have only a mild problem with a cholesterol abnormality. You've got to treat about 20,000 of those women for 5 years to prevent one death, as opposed to if you've got a smoker who has diabetes, etc., etc. So when it comes to the statins or any other drug, be conservative. Look for lifestyle measures first, because those are the most powerful medicines in the universe. And if you stick with a healthy lifestyle, you're not going to need the drug in the first place.